My name is Bong Pizarro. I'm married to Shirley with 4 kids. I grew up seeing the men in both sides of my family have extramarital relationships. Maybe this was the reason why very early in my own marriage, I was already guilty of adultery. Even when my wife would find out about it, I saw no reason to stop. My womanizing reached a point that I wanted to leave my family for another woman. When my wife would point out how bad my decisions were, I would even hurt her physically. No one could convince me at that time that what I was doing was wrong. This vicious cycle continued until I experienced a most horrible blow in our relationship. I found out one day that my wife was in love with another man. I couldn't accept it. It never occurred to me that she had been suffering so much from the kind of husband that I was. In my eyes, she is the sinner and I was the aggrieved party. To cope with the pain, I was violent and abused her verbally. I used fear to control her, thinking that I can make her love me again. Our arguments got so worse that Shirley and I agreed that it was the end of the line for us. I opted to leave for the US with the intention of staying there for good.
When my husband found out about the other man, he became a totally different person. He would humiliate me, and sometimes he would be violent. I lived in fear. He told me that he will never stop harassing me while I am still married to him. As I was feeling hopeless, I already consulted a lawyer about the annulment of our marriage. On the same day, a friend asked me to come to a Bible study with her. God spoke me directly through that Bible class as if every word uttered that night was for me. I was practically sobbing from start to finish, but I vividly remember the lessons. God commands that husbands and wives should stay together. Trials come to us, and God sometimes uses our feelings to test our faith. Through it all, we must be willing to hold on to Him and just prove how much we trust Him with our lives. And if we obey, even in tears, the abundance of His blessings will be upon us. I found myself asking for forgiveness from the Lord for all the mistakes that I have committed against Him in my life. I have tearfully committed my life back to Him and promised to turn away from all of my sinful ways. And that night led to that shining moment when I have accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. When my broken relationship with God was restored, everything else started to fall into its proper perspective. More importantly, my relationship with my husband started mending as well.
One of the ugliest fights we had was when I picked her up from the airport after coming from a business trip. I started fighting with her and calling her names once more. Crying, she begged me to stop bullying her, but I got angry all the more and hit her while driving the car. What she said next dumbfounded me. She said she was no longer scared of me because God has already forgiven her. That was the last time I ever bothered her again. In my mind, I no longer hold any power over her. During that time, I was in the province. I got a call from my wife asking me to join her in a CCF couples retreat in Tagaytay. Without any second thoughts, I said yes. I learned from this retreat the kind of love and forgiveness that only Jesus Christ can offer. How God can release us from the guilt of the darkest sin we have ever committed against Him and each other. In that retreat, I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and my Savior. Amen. And submitted everything to Him. I realized I only had to hang on to His strength, power, wisdom, and mercy to set my life right. I asked forgiveness from Shirley and has forgiven her too. It was miraculously easy. God's message of forgiveness is so great and encompassing that we both cannot turn our backs on it. Our first miracle was that we both felt like brand new people with no painful past to dwell on. From that day on, I made a covenant with God to love my wife in the light of Christ's love. For the first time in my life, I am convinced that I made my wife truly happy. And by faith, she has accepted me back without a doubt. We went back home together after the retreat, never to separate again. As a result of it all, our children got curious about our new faith, and in no time, they too embraced Jesus Christ as the Lord and their Savior. The Lord saved me and Shirley not only because He wanted to put order in our lives and family. He saved us so we can be a witness to other people that He is alive, and it is only in Him where one can find true forgiveness, hope, joy, and peace that transcends all understanding. To Him be all the glory.